Hey everyone. I want to introduce you to Mikoto. The MC first met her in the summer of 3rd grade. Ever since then, they've been inseparable. By the way, the MC is the little guy on the left. His name's Takeshi. In elementary school, Mikoto was bursting with energy and always cheerful and bright. She was endlessly optimistic, always dragging Takeshi along no matter what. Back then, she was all Takeshi could think about. To him, she was the sun itself, brightening everything around her. When Mikoto entered middle school, she became even more amazing. She was beautiful, outgoing, and excelled both academically and athletically. Honestly, she was just incredible, truly one of a kind. But everything changed when she entered high school. Mikoto became clingy, always asking me to walk home with her. The confident, unstoppable girl I knew seemed to have shifted into someone completely different. After asking Takeshi to walk home together, Mikoto would always give him the chance to say no. She would lower herself slightly, hesitating, and ask if he wouldn't want to walk home with someone like her. Takeshi always agreed, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something about her behavior was off. Her personality seemed to flip, sometimes leaving him wondering if she was even the same person he had known for years. Even after he agreed, she would fidget nervously, asking if he was truly fine with walking home with her, worrying that she might be a burden. Takeshi had to reassure her every time, telling her that she wasn't a burden and that he didn't mind. Only then would Mikoto finally calm down. He always noticed a certain heaviness in the air whenever he was with her. One day, as she fidgeted and muttered under her breath, Mikoto finally mustered the courage to tell Takeshi that she liked the game they played at his place. It had been really fun. Takeshi, understanding her hint, asked if she wanted to come over and continue the game from where they had left off. She nodded eagerly, agreeing. You see, Mikoto and Takeshi have been childhood friends, who spent countless hours playing together. Even now, they still hung out, enjoying games like they always had. As they played, Mikoto won the first round, and Takeshi laughed dryly and suggested another round. But she won again. She glanced at him mischievously, calling him a loser and asking if he was frustrated. Takeshi sighed, remembering that Mikoto had always been good at everything. He wasn't sure he had ever beaten her in a game before. Brushing off his defeat, he got up to grab a drink, but before he knew it, Mikoto was suddenly right in front of him. He was obviously startled as he barely saw her move. She quickly explained that she hadn't meant to make fun of him. Apologizing profusely, she asked if she had upset him and begged him not to hate her. Takeshi timidly accepted her apology. The thing that had changed the most about Mikoto was that she was absolutely terrified of being hated by Takeshi. She asked if there was anything she could do to make it up to him, practically begging for something to do. Her fear was almost pathological. Reluctantly, Takeshi told her he was thirsty and asked if she could get him a drink. Mikoto's face lit up, and she assured him she would handle it. She wanted to be useful. As she went to get the drink, Takeshi thought to himself that he could never hate her. When she returned after a long while, Mikoto peeked through the doorway worriedly. Takeshi asked where the drink was, and she teared up, explaining that she had poured too much juice and couldn't carry it. When he asked why she made such a mistake, she replied that she just wanted him to have plenty to drink. Even with all her flaws, Mikoto's earnestness and cuteness made it impossible for Takeshi to ever hate her. At school, Takeshi ran into his class representative and asked her what was up. She immediately asked whether he had turned in the festival feedback survey, and he began wondering where he had put it. Just then, Takeshi noticed Mikoto staring right at him. One of her quirks was that she got extremely anxious whenever he talked to another girl. Takeshi thought quickly about how to avoid making Mikoto more nervous. Then, a plan came to him. He just needed to make it obvious that he had no real interest in the conversation. Internally, he apologized to the class rep. He knew he was about to be a little cruel for Mikoto's sake. Sighing, he said it was a pain and, with a sinister smile, told the class rep that when he found the paper, he'd just scribble whatever came to mind and submit it. She shrugged, saying he could do whatever he wanted since she couldn't be bothered. Takeshi inwardly grumbled. Wasn't the class rep supposed to be scolding him? He realized that his naturally kind-hearted nature made him terrible at being genuinely cruel. Suddenly, Mikoto started approaching him, and he panicked. The situation felt dangerous. If it continued, she might start crying. His face went pale at the thought, knowing he would never forgive himself if he made her cry. The class rep noticed his sudden change in expression and asked if he was okay. That's when she saw Mikoto. Flipping through her booklets, she asked Mikoto whether she had submitted the survey. Mikoto immediately hid behind Takase and apologized, admitting she hadn't turned it in yet. The class rep shook her head, complaining that the two of them were always like this, even during the last class decision meeting. Then she said, rather casually, that Mikoto and Takase seriously suited each other. Mikoto's face flushed bright red. The class rep reminded them to turn in their surveys by the end of the day and left. After she was gone, Mikoto turned to Takase and quietly repeated what the class rep had said, that they suited each other. Takase realized that, in the end, all his worries had been completely unnecessary. In the next scene, Mikoto caught a cold. Since she couldn't go to school, she felt lonely. Not being able to see Takase in person made her days feel dull. But because she was sick, Takase worried more than usual and showered her with attention. Mikoto was genuinely happy. For once, catching a cold didn't feel so bad. Wanting even more attention, she decided to exaggerate her condition slightly, despite having only a mild fever. She sent Takase a message claiming her temperature had risen to 41 degrees Celsius. The moment Takase saw it, he panicked. 41 degrees Celsius is a medical emergency. Meanwhile, Mikoto was pleased that he had replied so quickly. But when she read his message telling her to hang in there and apologizing for texting her, she felt a pang of sadness. She thought the conversation was ending and panicked, wondering how to fix it. Quickly, she sent another message clarifying that she wasn't running a high fever, she just felt a little hot or a little cold. When Takase read this, he was alarmed that she couldn't even tell whether she was hot or cold. Convinced it was life-threatening, he immediately stood up and dashed off, texting her that he was coming over. Mikoto became restless at the news. He was coming over, and she didn't really have a fever. What if he found out she had lied? She imagined him calling her a vile woman for deceiving him and hating her. The thought was so overwhelming that tears welled up in her eyes. To her dismay, he arrived very quickly. Mikoto felt like she was done for, imagining the worst, but she tried to console herself. At least she would get to see his face one last time. When the worried Takase asked if she was okay, she braced herself and meekly admitted that she didn't actually have a high fever, and that she was just happy that he cared about her. Take's relief was palpable. He had feared she was gravely ill, but seeing her safe eased his worry. Mikoto thanked him for caring and apologized for lying, and Takase accepted her apology without hesitation. In the next scene, Mikoto was sneakily poking Takase, and when he turned around, she pretended as if nothing had happened. When Takase asked her if she had poked him, she acted innocent, asking what he was talking about and insisting that it hadn't been her. But when he turned away again, she quietly laughed. Takase realized that this was Mikoto's special "pay attention to me" signal, which meant she was in a good mood. Even though her cheerfulness was a good thing, he felt that if he reacted, it would be as if he were losing. Despite her irresistible cuteness, he decided to remain composed and not respond. Mikoto continued poking him, but he ignored her, steadfast in his refusal to react. Seeing that he would not respond, she covered his eyes and asked him to guess who it was, yet he continued to ignore her. Eventually, she slowly lowered her hands and began to cry, asking why he was ignoring her. She hugged him and accused him of being mean. She asked if there was something about her that he did not like, and added that if that were the reason he was upset, she would change and become the kind of girl who was perfect for him. She insisted that she would change everything about herself, but Takase reassured her that it was not like that. He explained that he had been stubborn for no reason, apologized, and emphasized that there was nothing about her that he disliked. He apologized again and asked her not to cry. Mikoto immediately brightened, asking if he truly did not hate her and if he was not mad at her. He assured her that he was not. Takase had seen many sides of Mikoto over the years, but since they had been children, he had always been weak to her tears. The moment she cried, he never stood a chance. Although it was a weakness, he had come to accept it as a part of himself that he did not mind. As they continued walking, Mikoto poked him again, and this time, he did not ignore her. As Mikoto walked behind Takase, he suddenly stopped, and she accidentally slammed into him. When he turned around, he noticed that she had a nosebleed. The hair that usually covered her right eye had parted, revealing her scar. Takase immediately blamed himself, thinking it had happened because he hadn't been careful. Mikoto quickly reassured him that it was fine, explaining that it bled easily since it had also bled the night before. Despite her calm words, Takase insisted that it was his fault as he tried to stop the bleeding. The scar on the right side of Mikoto's face, which was usually hidden, dated back to middle school. At the time, she had a peculiar presence, an almost gravitational pull that drew people toward her. But not everything it attracted was good. Jealousy, envy, and other negative emotions had slowly built up around her, and the scar had been the painful result. Takase knew that Mikoto wasn't to blame. He felt that the responsibility was all his. Back then, embarrassed by his own feelings for her, he had intentionally kept his distance. Even though he sensed that something strange was happening to her, he did not intervene. Part of the reason Mikoto had changed over time was that Takase, her closest person during that period, had not been there to protect her. Now, he had resolved to protect her, but he still could not bring himself to confess his feelings. Doing so felt far too presumptuous, even though his desire to care for her had grown stronger than ever. Once the bleeding had stopped, Takase asked Mikoto if her nose still hurt, and told her to let him know if anything else was wrong. Mikoto, pleased by his concern, responded with a touch of drama, claiming she might be feeling a little dizzy. Taking advantage of the moment, she asked him if he could stay with her and watch over her for the day. For Mikoto, being injured wasn't so bad, because whenever she was hurt, Takase gave her his full attention. Mikoto's middle school years were the worst. Takase had avoided her, and when she got her scar, she wanted to die. But the scar brought Takase back. Because of it, he started looking at her again. Her scarred face, in her eyes, was ruined, ugly and unlovable. She believed there was no way Takase could ever fall for her. Everything he did for her had been out of pity, and she had known it. That was why she felt she had to make sure Takase didn't hate her. She had to ensure that he would never grow tired of her. She had to remain someone pitiful, so that he would stay by her side. Even with all her flaws, she wanted to be with him forever. Yet for someone like her to hope that he would return her feelings felt far too presumptuous. In the next scene, as Mikoto was using her phone and waiting for Takase to arrive, she was unaware that someone was watching her. Before she could react, a girl suddenly hugged her from behind, startling her. The girl was Mitaka, Take's younger sister. Mitaka asked Mikoto if there had been any progress between her and Takase, causing Mikoto to blush. Nervously, Mikoto replied that Takase was always kind and helped her whenever she was in trouble. After a moment of thought, Mitaka commented that Mikoto had strange tastes. She said that, while Take's appearance was decent, he was otherwise hopeless. After all, she had to wake him up every morning, and without her, he would be completely hopeless. But Mikoto said she didn't care what anyone thought about Takase because she loved everything about him. Mitaka, breaking into a cold sweat, stammered that Mikoto might not really love Takase. After all, the Takase she knew was only a small part of him. She tried to give examples of the parts of Takase that Mikoto didn't know, but she couldn't. Curious, Mikoto asked if Mitaka meant how Takase acted at home. Mitaka admitted that Mikoto was correct. That was exactly what she had been trying to explain. Mikoto, intrigued, asked her to tell her more about how Takase behaved at home. Mitaka initially acted pompous, saying that since Mikoto asked, she would make an exception and tell her. But then she paled, remembering that Takase only spoke about Mikoto at home, leaving her tongue-tied. Mikoto reassured her, saying she would be okay with anything Mitaka shared about Takase because she wanted to understand him better. Frustrated, Mitaka threw a tantrum, complaining that Mikoto and Takase were always together, doing things without including her, and leaving her out. Mikoto flinched at the remark. Mitaka continued that she wanted to hang out with both of them, but before the conversation could escalate, Takase arrived and karate-chopped Mitaka's head, silencing her. He apologized to Mikoto for being late and for his little sister's tantrum, then sternly warned Mitaka to stop bothering her. Mikoto approached the now crying Mitaka and asked if she could talk to her for a moment. Mitaka asked what she wanted. Moving closer, Mikoto whispered that she was sorry if she had upset Mitaka, that she genuinely liked her, and asked if they could be friends. Mitaka wiped away her tears and admitted she had misjudged Mikoto. She confessed that she had assumed Mikoto would be the kind of girl who would take any other girl beside her brother as an enemy. Then, she asked if Mikoto truly wanted to be friends. Mikoto smiled and said she did. After all, Mitaka was Take's younger sister. After finishing her writing, Mikoto stood up and stretched, causing Take to inadvertently notice her curves. She quickly apologized for dragging him along to help with her assignment, and asked if he minded. Take reassured her that he didn't mind at all. In fact, he said it was actually great, since when it was just the two of them, they could help each other with things that they didn't understand. Mikoto laughed, saying that if he said so, then it must be true. After noticing that he had grown quiet for a while, she moved closer and asked if something was wrong, or if she was bothering him, and Take's quickly said that she wasn't. Despite his words, Take's thoughts betrayed him. As her childhood friend, he knew the truth about Mikoto's figure. Although they were hidden beneath her usually baggy clothes, she actually had 2 massive Mount Everests. He mentally scolded himself for thinking impure thoughts, and slammed his hands on the table in frustration. He reminded himself that Mikoto was his precious childhood friend, and that he needed to protect her. He called himself a pervert for nearly losing control and resolved to stay rational. Even so, his body refused to cooperate, and he felt frustrated at his own helplessness. He hated feeling powerless in the face of Mikoto's allure and mentally apologized to her for being trash. Just then, Mikoto called out to him. Take flinched and apologized before asking what was wrong. She asked if he thought the room was hot. Take admitted that it was, explaining that just opening the window wouldn't be enough, and asked if she wanted him to turn on the AC. Mikoto said it was fine, she could simply remove a layer of clothing. When she took off her sweater, Take realized he already lost the battle. Later that night, Take retrieved a tissue and baby oil, intent on acting on his impulses. Midway, his sister suddenly opened the door and called him for dinner. He panicked, yelling at her not to just barge in like that, but the interruption left him unable to continue. Take noticed Mikoto smiling brightly and asked if something good had happened. Mikoto explained that her mother had been talking to her a lot lately, even sending her messages. Mikoto's mother was a single parent. Her father had passed away when Mikoto was in 3rd grade. Since then, her mother had buried herself and worked to cope with the loss, leaving Mikoto feeling neglected. Take recalled visiting Mikoto's house often in elementary school, yet he had never met her mother. Now, he guessed that she had changed. Perhaps her daughter's recent injury had made her realize that she had failed to protect her. Mikoto, brimming with excitement, showed Take a message her mother just sent. Seeing the text, it almost looked like something a stalker would send. Afterwards, Take walked Mikoto home and waved goodbye. Inside, Mikoto was greeted by her mother, who was relieved she had arrived safely, though Mikoto found her reaction a little dramatic. Her mother suggested they eat together, and Mikoto agreed. She had ordered Mikoto's favorite food from a restaurant, promising it would be delicious. After the meal, Mikoto thanked her mother and offered to do the dishes. Her mother gently refused, saying it was too dangerous, warning that Mikoto could cut herself on a fork or a knife. She insisted Mikoto relax while she cleaned up. When Mikoto tried to argue, her mother reminded her that she no longer needed to suffer, so Mikoto reluctantly gave up. Later, as Mikoto tried to start her homework, her mother offered to help and told her to ask about anything she didn't understand. Mikoto agreed. Once the homework was finished, her mother suggested reading a picture book together, and Mikoto reluctantly went along. When it was time for a bath, her mother offered to bathe with her. As night fell and it became late, Mikoto wanted to go to bed early so she could see Take the next day, but decided to make a quick phone call first. Her mother entered the room and offered to sleep beside her, and Mikoto reluctantly agreed. Lying in bed, Mikoto noticed her mother staring at her and asked what was wrong. Her mother remembered the time when Mikoto had gotten her scar. She had asked why Mikoto hadn't come to her for help or told her before things got so bad. At the time, Mikoto had cried and explained that it was because her mother was never around. Returning to the present, her mother reassured Mikoto that everything would be okay now, that she was here for her. She promised to give Mikoto everything she hadn't been able to provide before, encouraging her to do more and not hold back. Internally, Mikoto realized that her mother's attention was driven by guilt. She was desperately seeking Mikoto's love. She was trying to make up for the past. Yet Mikoto didn't mind. Simply being with her mother made her happy. When her mother finally fell asleep, Mikoto whispered good night and decided to call Take. Take sat drinking coffee, glancing at the clock as he waited for Mikoto's call. When the time finally came, his phone rang, and he quickly answered. Mikoto apologized for calling so late again, explaining that she had felt a little lonely before bed. Take reassured her that it was fine and agreed to talk for a while. You see, 4 or 7 times a week, Mikoto would call him. Talking with her until she fell asleep had become a part of his daily routine. Although it might sound exhausting, he actually enjoyed it, and when she didn't call, he found himself worrying. He considered it a normal part of youth, at least for him. They spoke for a little over an hour, and when he was certain she had fallen asleep, he tried to end the call. But then, a voice spoke up, asking him not to hang up. It was Mikoto's mother. She introduced herself, and thanked him for looking after Mikoto. She said she had something to discuss about Mikoto's school life and asked if he had a moment. Takase reluctantly agreed, inwardly complaining about the overtime. But he reasoned that since it was about Mikoto, it was worth listening. The call dragged on far longer than expected, almost 4 straight hours, until the sun began to rise. Takase tried to end the conversation several times, but Mikoto's mother's persuasive skills kept the call going. Eventually, she apologized for keeping him so long and explained that she had done awful things to her daughter in the past. She wanted to make it up to Mikoto and understand her better as her mother. Takase realized she was genuinely trying her best and couldn't fault her, so he decided to continue listening. Mikoto's mother spiraled emotionally, even breaking into tears over how much she felt she had let Mikoto down. Takase reassured her, telling her not to be so hard on herself and that the very fact she was trying now was already admirable. After a while, he noticed there was no response, and then he heard the sound of snoring. Annoyed, he realized that she had fallen asleep. Checking the time, he sighed. Morning had arrived, but he decided to sleep for about an hour. Before he could doze off, his younger sister, Mitaka, barged into his room. She cheerfully announced that she had woken up earlier than usual, and decided to give him a morning call. Takase looked at her lifelessly, and when she saw he was already awake, she complained that he was no fun. In frustration, he grabbed her and punished her, prompting Mitaka to scream and ask why he took out his stress on her 99% of the time. It was Saturday, the day Mikoto was supposed to visit Take's place. On these Saturday visits, Mikoto usually spent most of her time in his room. Takase, fully aware of the situation, decided to make the most of it. First, he brought out a memory foam cushion to reduce fatigue from prolonged sitting and to protect Mikoto's comfort. Although it had cost him 10,000 yen, he considered it a necessary sacrifice. Next, he borrowed an air purifier from the living room, reasoning that if Mikoto ever complained about any unpleasant smell in his room, he would be mortified. His secret weapon, however, was 10 baked puddings from Mikoto's favorite cake shop. But when he opened the fridge, all of them were gone. Takase was dumbfounded. It seemed impossible unless some supernatural rift had swallowed them. Just then, Mitaka returned home. Takase greeted her, and asked if she had seen the puddings. With a thumbs up, she admitted that she had eaten every last one. Takase could only sigh. His sister was truly a gluttonous demon. He pondered his options. Buying more was impossible. The cake shop was a 2-hour round trip, and Mikoto would arrive in about an hour. With no other choice, he decided to make the puddings himself. As he cooked, Mitaka peeked in and asked if he was making chawanmushi. Annoyed, Takase called her an idiot and told her she wouldn't get any. Then Mitaka mentioned that Mikoto's mom was calling, which left Takase baffled. She asked why he even had her number, and teased that it was creepy. Takase explained that he didn't have a choice. Mikoto's mom had begged him for it on her knees. He answered the call, introducing himself politely and asking what had happened. Mikoto's mom explained that Mikoto had a fever. Although she had wanted Mikoto to visit, she couldn't risk her getting worse, as the stress would be unbearable. Meanwhile, Mikoto herself was throwing a tantrum, insisting on going over. Takase told her mother to please convey his hopes that Mikoto would feel better soon. Exhausted, Takase turned to Mitaka and said he was making chawanmushi, asking if she wanted some. This was the first time Mitaka had ever seen her brother look so emotionally drained. Mikoto apologized to Takase for not being able to come over and hang out with him. He reassured her that it was okay. Her health came first. To make it up to him, she brought a lot of sweets so that the two of them could enjoy them together. Takase rejoiced. Sweets always tasted better after school. Mikoto asked if she had helped and made him happy. Takase smiled and replied that she had, and that they should eat right away. Just then, a shadowy figure wearing glasses approached them. It was their class representative, who mumbled that sweets after school were wonderful. Takase was surprised to see her, and when he noticed how intently she was staring at them, he quickly apologized and suggested they go somewhere else. As Takase told Mikoto they couldn't stay and needed to find another spot to eat, the class rep stopped them, saying they couldn't leave. When Takase asked why, she fell into deep thought, unsure of how to respond. She couldn't possibly admit that it was because she secretly shipped the two of them. She blamed herself for being so foolish, But seeing how perfect they looked together, she felt compelled to say something, even though she had sworn not to interfere with her one true pair. By speaking up, she had become an annoying fan crashing their little date. The class rep stuttered and told them to just stay there. Takase, puzzled, asked if she was after their snacks, and she immediately denied it. Internally, she wished he would just ignore her. She couldn't understand how he hadn't noticed Mikoto's nervousness. She mentally scolded him, thinking that he had been too soft on everyone since elementary school. His priority should be Mikoto. He should talk to no one else and keep his eyes on her. Still, she found it incredibly cute how Mikoto clung to Takase. She knew the two of them were in love. They were just too stubborn to admit it. They were probably thinking that they weren't good enough for each other or didn't deserve each other, though she understood why. Especially after everything Mikoto had gone through, she felt they needed to move forward, even if it was messy. They were just one step away from breaking down the fake wall between them. Suddenly, the class rep dashed off. Takase, surprised, asked where she was going. She responded casually that she was going to the restroom. Mikoto, noticing her speed, remarked on how fast she was. Though the class rep was just a lowly shipper, all she could do was pray with all her heart that Takase and Mikoto would hurry up, confess their feelings, date, get married, and live happily ever after. The next scene began with Mikoto happily eating her lunch while Takase just stared at her. He called out, telling her that people who eat cutely are nice. Mikoto immediately overthought it. She reasoned that if Takase liked people who ate cutely, it must mean he liked girls like that more than her, which, in turn, meant he would hate her and abandon her. In her frantic calculations, Mikoto concluded that the only solution was to die. But of course, she didn't want to die. So instead, she wondered what she could do to prove that she was more valuable than the hypothetical girl in question. With that in mind, Mikoto asked Takase if she had bigger jigglers than the other girl. Takase, caught completely off guard, spit out what he was drinking and asked what she was suddenly talking about. Timidly, she asked if he didn't like big jigglers. Reluctantly, he said he didn't hate them, though internally, he was thinking that he absolutely loved them. Mikoto, seeing his reaction, was delighted that her plan seemed to be working. She then asked if he wanted to touch them. Takase immediately rejected the idea, saying he could never. But Mikoto reassured him that if it was him, it would be fine. Flustered, Takase stammered that she couldn't just spring something like that on him out of nowhere. He tried to calm himself, but couldn't help wondering what Mikoto was thinking, asking him that so suddenly. Just then, he noticed that she was blushing. Confused, he asked why she was the one blushing when she was the one who brought it up. Mikoto, equally flustered, apologized and stammered that she had gotten caught up in the moment. After a tense silence, Takase felt the atmosphere growing awkward. Just then, the bell rang. He reminded Mikoto that class was starting, so they needed to hurry. She flusteredly agreed, and as they left, Takase silently wondered why their conversation had even started talking about jigglers in the first place. When Takase went home, he lay on his bed, remembering how Mikoto had asked him if he wanted to touch her jigglers. Despite his hesitation, he reluctantly picked up his phone and placed an order. The next day, Takase nervously waited for the delivery, and when he heard the doorbell, he ran to the mailbox with almost supernatural speed to retrieve it. Just as he was about to check the contents, Mikoto, who had appeared at the door, asked him what he had gotten. Takase immediately panicked, asking her what she was doing there. Mikoto explained that she had been curious about what he was doing and before she knew it, she had somehow ended up at his house. She then asked him if that was creepy. Takase hid the package behind him and told her that it wasn't creepy at all, that it was just a normal day without anything unusual happening. Mikoto asked why he was hiding something behind him, and Takase stuttered as he struggled to come up with an explanation. She then asked if what he was hiding was a dirty magazine, which caused him to start sweating. Mikoto tried to take the package from him and asked what kind of things he liked, saying that she wanted him to tell her so she could match his interests. She insisted that she would do her best to make him like her even more. Takase, flustered, called her an idiot and told her that it wasn't something to joke about. Eventually, Mikoto managed to grab the package from him. When she saw the title, which read Bangs Covered Childhood Friend with Big Jigglers, Mikoto blushed. Takase also blushed but told her that it wasn't weird, since he was a guy. Mikoto felt a strange sense of satisfaction, thinking that even if she wasn't the one Takase loved, at least he still looked at her that way. With a mischievous smile, she asked him to lend her his hand. When he gave it to her, she placed it on her jiggler. Surprised, Takase quickly pulled his hand back and asked what she was doing. She didn't answer and simply dashed away. From a corner, she waved goodbye and told him that she would see him tomorrow. Left alone, Takase glanced at his dirty magazine and muttered that it couldn't compare to the real thing. He sighed as he walked into his house, muttering in frustration, "Damn it, Mikoto.